The 1990s were full of little things that made everyday life unforgettable. One moment you could be staring at the Windows maze screensaver that seemed to go on forever. The next you were sipping on a bottle of Zima with a Jolly Rancher dropped inside. Or worrying about the Y2K Panic that had everyone stocking up on supplies. It was a time of bold experiments, strange fads, and memories that still make us smile today. Let's take a walk back and see which of these you remember most. There was one drink in the 90s that seemed to be everywhere, and that was Zima. Introduced by Coors Brewing Company in 1994, it joined the big craze for clear beverages. It looked like water, tasted a little like Sprite mixed with vodka, and never quite felt like beer or soda. Plenty of people even dropped Jolly Ranchers inside to sweeten it up. For a while, it was the flavor of summer parties and late-night hangouts, before quietly disappearing and becoming just another memory from the 90s. As the year 2000 drew closer, the world braced for what was called the Y2K problem.
Oh no, it's happening.
Computers had been programmed to record years with only 2 digits, and many feared that when the clock struck midnight, systems would think it was 1900 and crash. Banks, airlines, even power grids were said to be at risk. Some people stockpiled food, withdrew cash, and waited for chaos. But when the night finally arrived, the lights stayed on, the planes kept flying, and the biggest scare of the digital age simply fizzled out. The Windows 95 3D maze wasn't just a screensaver. It became a show that people actually watched. Red brick walls stretched into endless corridors. Different floating objects drifted by, and a smiling emoji waited at the end of every run before it all began again. You couldn't control it, yet it felt oddly suspenseful, like watching a game play itself. Many of us sat there far too long, hypnotized by a simple maze that turned into one of the most memorable little features of the time. AOL Instant Messenger, better known as AIM, was where so many of us spent our evenings online. Do you remember your old screen name? AIM wasn't just about messages. It had its own soundtrack. These sounds became part of daily life, tied to hours of chatting with friends and maybe even that special someone you hoped would log on. Looking back, AIM was simple compared to today's apps, but it felt new, exciting, and unforgettable for anyone who grew up with it. Orbitz was one of the oddest drinks of the 90s, packaged in little glass bottles that looked more like a science project than a soda. Inside was a sweet, non-carbonated fruit drink with colorful gel-like beads floating in suspension, moving slowly like a lava lamp whenever you tilted the bottle. The flavor sounded exciting: vanilla orange, raspberry citrus, blueberry melon. But most people couldn't get past the strange texture. Curiosity sold the first sip, but few came back for more, and Orbitz soon slipped off the shelves.
I've never seen 10,000 tapes in one store.
For many of us, a weekend evening meant a trip to Blockbuster. The aisles were lined with bright blue cases, each promising a different adventure for the night. Families wandered up and down, debating which movie would be the pick, and there was nothing better than spotting the exact film you wanted sitting in the return bin. Blockbuster wasn't just a store, it was part of our routine, a little ritual that made choosing a movie almost as fun as watching it. Wow chips hit the shelves in 1998 with a big promise: the same beloved snacks like Lay's, Ruffles, and Doritos, but with less fat. Frito-Lay made them with Olestra, a fat substitute that was supposed to make snacking guilt-free. For a while, shoppers were excited to give them a try. But let's be honest, even the memory of Wow chips might be enough to make your stomach uneasy. In the end, the name promised a big reaction, just not the one anyone was hoping for. Few fashion items defined the 90s quite like starter jackets. Bright, oversized, and emblazoned with team logos, they made kids feel like part of the pros. Whether it was the Bulls, Cowboys, or Raiders, having one meant you stood out in the schoolyard. They were stylish, warm, and instantly recognizable, which made them as much a status symbol as a piece of clothing. Everyone seemed to want one, And for a while, starter jackets were simply one of the coolest things you could own. Before the internet put everything at our fingertips, gaming magazines were the gateway to another world. Titles like Game Pro, Game Informer, and Electronic Gaming Monthly brought us previews of upcoming releases, cheat codes, and detailed walkthroughs that felt like gold. Each new issue meant fresh excitement, flipping through glossy pages filled with screenshots, reviews, and tips that kept us talking for weeks. Those magazines weren't just information, they were part of the thrill of being a gamer at the time. Beanie Babies were more than just stuffed animals, they were a full-blown craze. These small, soft toys with cute names and bright colors had collectors rushing to find the rare ones, convinced they'd be worth a fortune someday. McDonald's even joined the frenzy with teeny beanies and Happy Meals, sending parents and kids hunting from store to store. For a few wild years, it felt like everyone had a shelf or a box filled with them. Today, most sit forgotten, but the memory of that frenzy is unforgettable. I can't skip over another drink that became a cult favorite of the era, Crystal Pepsi. Launched in the early 90s, it was Pepsi's bold attempt to shake up the soft drink market. The soda looked like water but promised the familiar cola taste, only without caffeine. The advertising was huge with flashy commercials and big expectations, but the flavor never quite lived up to the hype. People were intrigued enough to try it once, but few kept buying. Crystal Pepsi soon vanished, leaving behind one of the strangest experiments in soda history. Before cell phones took over, pagers or beepers were everywhere. Clipped to a belt, they buzzed or beeped and flashed a phone number, sending you racing to the nearest payphone to call back. By the mid-90s, millions of people carried them, from teenagers to doctors. Still, some parents weren't so impressed. More than a few joked that pagers were something only drug dealers used. The truth is, for a short stretch of time, having that little gadget on your hip made you feel connected in a way nothing else could. Sony's MiniDisc Players were supposed to be the next big step after cassette tapes. The discs were small, easy to carry, and came in protective cases that felt futuristic at the time. You could record your own mixes, skip tracks instantly, and the sound quality was crisp compared to tapes. For a while, it seemed like they had everything going for them. But CDs were cheaper, MP3 players arrived soon after, and the mini-disc never really caught on outside of Japan. Glamour Shots studios were a sensation of the 90s, giving women and teenage girls the chance to feel like models for a day. You'd walk in, get your makeup done, pick out a few flashy outfits, and pose under dramatic lighting with teased hair and bold colors. The photos might look a little over the top now, but back then, they were treasured keepsakes, proudly framed and hung on the wall. Those pictures may look a little dated today, but they're a reminder of a fun trend that so many girls were part of. In the early days of the internet, Netscape Navigator was the browser almost everyone used. Launched in 1994, it gave people their first real taste of exploring websites, back when the web still felt new and exciting. For a few years, it dominated, installed on millions of home computers, and it made the idea of surfing the web part of everyday life. But competition from Internet Explorer and later browsers quickly pushed it aside. Netscape didn't last, but it opened the path for everything that came after. Friday nights in the 90s often meant gathering around the TV for ABC's TGIF lineup.
Friday night, and the mood is right. Gonna have some fun, show you how it's done, TGIF.
Shows like Full House, Family Matters, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Boy Meets World turned the end of the week into a small family event. Parents and kids could sit together, laugh at the same jokes, and enjoy lighthearted stories that felt made for everyone. TGIF wasn't just television. It was part of the rhythm of the week, a reminder that Friday nights were for fun, comfort, and a little time together before the weekend began. I'd love to see in the comments which of these were your favorites, and which ones I might have forgotten to mention. And if you enjoyed this trip back, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next video. And be sure to visit my channel. There are plenty more memories waiting for you there.